Ass full of shades and turned the lights down low and said, "Come on, Daddy, let's rock and roll some more." I said, "Take it easy, Grizzly. Take it easy, Grizzly. Take it easy, Grizzly, 'cause you got a long way to slide." Yeah, go, Jack! Said, "Hold me, Daddy, and don't let me go, because I want to rock and roll with you some more." I said, "Take it easy, Grizzly. Take it easy, Grizzly. Take it easy, Grizzly, 'cause you got a long way to slide." Well, she pulled the shades and turned the lights down low and said, "Come on, Daddy, let's rock and roll some more." I said, "Take it easy, Grizzly. Take it easy, Grizzly. Take it easy, Grizzly, 'cause you got a long way to slide." But when I tried to leave, she said, "Hold up, cat." I tried to run at the door, but she pulled me right back. I said, "Take it easy, Grizzly. Take it easy, Grizzly. Take it easy, Grizzly, 'cause you got a long way to slide." Hey! Now take it easy, 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 Grizzly, 'cause you got a long way to slide. Alabama train, Alabama train, take me home. Alabama train, way up here in New Jersey, long way from home. Ain't got nobody to love me. Yes, I better go on home. Alabama train, Alabama train, Alabama train. Why don't you take me home? I'm going down in Louisiana, baby, behind the sun. I'm going down in Louisiana, honey, behind the sun. Well, you know, I just found out my trouble kept me. I'm going down in New Orleans, get me a mojo hand. I'm going down in New Orleans, get me a mojo hand. Oh, take me with you, man, when you go. I want to show all you good-looking women just how to treat your man. Let's go back to New Orleans, boy. Well, I'm a king bee, buzzing around your eye. Well, I'm a king bee, buzzing around your eye. Well, I can make honey, baby, let me come inside. I'm young and able to buzz all night long. I'm young and able to buzz all night long. Well, when you hear me buzzing, baby, some singing is going on. Well, buzz a while. Sting it then. Well, I'm a king bee, want you to be my queen. Well, I'm a king bee, want you to be my queen. Together we can make honey, whatever never seen. I'm a king bee, can buzz all night long. Well, a king bee can buzz all night long. Well, I can buzz better baby when your man is gone.
She's actually
Early one morning, water was coming in my door. Early one morning, water was coming in my door. It was the Ohio River telling us to get ready and go. It was dark and was raining. You could hear that howling wind. Yeah, it was dark and was raining. Baby, you could hear that howling wind. If I get away this time, I will never come here again. Yeah, my baby was pregnant. I didn't have a thing to eat. Yeah, I didn't have a thing to eat. Yeah, the water had come in, was everything I had down the street. I was hollering for mercy, and it was no boats around. Yeah, I was hollering for mercy, and it was no boats around. Yeah, it looks like people. I gotta stay right here and drown. See, my house started shaking, started floating on down the stream. Yeah, my house started shaking, went floating on down the stream. It was dark as midnight. People began to holler and scream. When I said three woman, when I said three woman, what the way she treat me, that's the coldest stuff in town. Don't like my chicken. I ate so much of chicken till I heard her clucking in my sleep. I ate so much of chicken till I heard her clucking in my sleep. I ate, don't like my chicken, mama, please don't dig so deep. big fat mama with the meat kicking on her bone. See the big fat mama with the meat kicking on her bone. And every time she kicks, Lord, a rockin' woman leaves her home. She got something that the men call a finger of you. She got something that the men call a finger of you. 4 o'clock every morning, she's trying to do something. Oh, my bad, she's one gone. Oh, my bad, she's woman gone. Bleed to my soul, she was hustling everywhere but home. If you can't do my rolling, mama, you can't spin your change. If you can't do my rolling, mama, you can't spin my change. Don't let me, help me hear the cry. Lord, love her, don't you monetize? Don't she monetize? Don't she monetize? Don't she monetize? Don't she monetize? Came home this morning about 4:30. Found that note down on my floor. Gone where lead you, just don't know. Heard some bad talk, something that you said, something that you said, something that you said. Come on back, baby, honey, please don't go. Well, I love you, you never know, you never know, you never know, you never know. My kind of baby, you know it so. I tell you, you know it ain't no joke. No, it ain't no joke. Come on back, baby. Don't do me wrong. You know I love you. Please come back home. Come on back home. Come on back home. Come on back home. Come on back home. Turn my arm. Got no more to say. Anything you do, let you have your way. 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 I'm so glad. I don't know what to do. Feeling good. Say she coming back home. Say she coming back home. I ain't gonna do it wrong. Well, I saw my baby walking with another man today. Well, I saw my baby walking It's another name, baby. When I asked her what's the matter, this is what I heard her say. See you later, alligator. That's one crocodile. See you later, alligator. That's one crocodile. Can't you see you anymore? Don't you know you got my style? When I thought of what you told me, it nearly made me lose my head. When I thought of what you told me, it nearly made me lose my head. But the next time that I saw her, I remind her what you said. See you later, alligator. At the one crocodile. See you later, alligator. At the one crocodile. Ain't you see you in the way down? Don't you know you got my style? Said I'm sorry, pretty daddy. You know my love is just for you. She said I'm sorry, pretty daddy. You know my love is just for you. Won't you say that you forgive me? Say that you can love me too. Said wait a minute, baby. You know you really just a player. I said wait a minute, baby. You know you really just a player. But you know you really hurt me. And it's what I have to say. See you later, alligator. At one crocodile. See you later, alligator. At one crocodile. Can't you see you in the hole? Don't you know you grab my style?
Choose Never Ending. Revlon Super Length, our most loved mascara, is specially formulated to extend and build quickly for long, lush lashes. Choose love. Choose Super Length from the Revlon Mascara Collection.
Got love that phone thing. Got love that phone thing. Got love that phone. Got love that phone. Got love that phone. We can rock on wild. We can rock on wild. Pretty to me, babe. Pretty to me, babe. What you find about pain? What you find about pain? If you let me love the pain, I think you love the man. I think you love the man. Now yeah, you come, babe. Now yeah, you come, babe. With your head on down. With your head on down. I know you've been thought. Don't come over town. Don't come over town. Now the next don't leave. Now the next don't leave. Deep into the line. Deep into the line. Don't worry nobody. That's all this time. That's all this time. I love you, little one. I love little while. But then I do myself. But then I do myself. But you didn't treat me fine. But someone else. But someone else. But someone else. Crazy, it's mighty crazy that you keep on looking at the same old thing. You know it's crazy, it's mighty crazy, it's mighty crazy that you keep on looking at the same old thing. You know I met a little girl, all scarfed out in blue. She saw me rubbing, she started rubbing too. Mighty crazy. Mighty crazy. It's mighty crazy. Does to keep on the rubbing, that's the same old thing. You know I know my little woman so loving. I think her love is awful fine. I'm so crazy about the way she got her rubbing for. Every now and then it run across my mind. I'm mighty crazy. I'm mighty crazy. I'm mighty crazy. Does to keep on the rubbing, that's the same old thing. But let her rub. It's mighty crazy. I'm mighty crazy. I'm mighty crazy. You got to keep on the rubbing, that's the same old thing. You know I had on some old dirty clothes, standing by a tub. She pulled me down in his manner, she began to rub. It's mighty crazy. I'm mighty crazy. I'm mighty crazy. Does to keep on the rubbing, that's the same old thing. It's mighty crazy. I'm mighty crazy. Mama, get what you live for done. Mama, get what you live for done. I found me a girl, we're out having lots of fun. Whoa, boy, we've been out romancing, dancing around and roll. We've been out romancing, dancing around and roll. You ought to see me and her trying to do the stroll. Whoa. Ooh, 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 ooh. I just stole a kiss and I asked her if she wanted more. I stole a kiss and I asked her if she wanted more. She said that I thrilled her like she never thrilled before. Whoa, boy. My lips and I kissed her one more time. I puckered up my lips and I kissed her one more time. Then I knew I found a girl who'd be just mine. Whoa. Mama, guess what you live for done. Mama, guess what you live for done. Whoa. I found me a girl, we're out having lots of fun. Oh boy. Ooh, 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 ooh. My stardom started mine, and I'm about to lose mine.
And you can hear my music anymore. So we can't hear my music anymore. Oh, yes, because we're trying to make it.
My stardom started mine.
I say Caddo, you say math. Caddo, math. Caddo, math. Super awesome. Okay. Never was I cheerleader out there. But I do try to do things to get your attention as you can. Guys, we're supposed to be packed in here with 112 people. We look like we're probably getting almost 100 now. So it's super important. It's super important that we are super respectful to one another. This is going to be, I'm going to go through some things that can be sent for a few minutes, but we are truly going to try to make this a work session. So by the time we get through the stuff, we'll have about an hour, hopefully an hour and 15 minutes to actually work. So when you leave here today, you will leave here with something that you can actually utilize. Make sense? Right? All right. For those of you that I have not had the pleasure to meet yet, I'll just use the microphone because we have people today. I'm not big on using microphones, but I will because if you guys look to most of your left, stage right, there's a camera. It is recording us, so I have to pay attention to what I say. Right? Okay, but anyway, so everybody wave and say hello to the people who are joining us that couldn't be here with us today. Okay. And this is also being recorded, so therefore you'll have this to utilize when you go back to your campuses. So therefore, if you forget one of the steps or whatever, you have access to it. Because you signed in, you should have put your school and your Caddo email address. You will receive this presentation via email as well. So therefore, if you have any questions, you can't get a hold of me, you can always go through the presentation. A few housekeeping things. The restroom is a one-stall restroom, ladies, one stall. Gentlemen, y'all are used to that. We used to have 5. There's one toilet. It's in this back corner over here. There are refreshments in the back. There's a coffee, which at one point in time we talked about we need a little coffee. And if you're not a coffee drinker, there is some water as well. Micah is actually our host for this afternoon. Anything you need to share with them?
No, restrooms. One stall, otherwise you can go upstairs. The only thing I ask is that there's no food or drink allowed upstairs. It's not the gallery. So if you do happen to get up and need to go up the stairs, you're more than welcome to. It's open for your convenience. But there is right at the top of the stairs, there's a little hallway. There's a male and female bathroom that has multiple stalls in it. So if this one's taken, feel free to go upstairs.
Oh, he's so busy, you want to use the restroom. Oh, he said otherwise welcome. So if you guys don't mind, just real quickly, I want you to take a look around the room and see how stinking amazing this room is and how very blessed we are that Norton has opened their facilities to us today. So if you don't mind, Emily's back there with Micah. If you would just give them a round of applause for Buster. Okay, and that's all I'm doing for the stage. So I'm gonna try to wobble down. I apologize. Okay, if you brought your electronic device, which you were supposed to, but if not, I understand, make sure you're sitting next to someone who does. You need to be able to access a few things that are through the internet. So the first thing you want us to do is make sure that you have already logged into Norton. Not even a login, you just need to make sure your Wi-Fi is set to Norton wireless. There's no password, you literally just click on it and it gets you set up. All right, so today we're going to talk about, you guys know what we're here to talk about today? Math. And specifically, it's January, so we start to panic because what's coming around the corner? But we've spent this year prepping for testing all year long, so we should not be in a panic. But I get it. We're creatures of habit. We're used to stressing at this point in time. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk quickly about the updates you've been given to the third 9 weeks so you can understand how that actually applies to testing. And then we're going to go through the work session, and hopefully by the time you leave here today, you'll go home with things that you can actually utilize in your classroom to make sure that you're implementing test prep every day and you're not just shutting down shop in February, March and giving them the practice test, oh, by the way, which isn't enough. Make sense? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Oh, did I introduce myself?
No.
Thank you, that's important. For those of you that have not had the opportunity to meet, I am Sommer Picou. I am the elementary math curriculum specialist. I'm excited to say that now I've been doing this for about a year, and I kind of sort of know what I'm doing. Thankfully, I have tons of teachers who keep me on my toes and make sure they ask those questions, kind of like we ask our students those medium, those probing questions. They ask the same thing of me, and it has made me research and educate myself even further, which who is ever too old to stop learning? So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with today. How do I know if I'm teaching the right thing in the right way to prepare my students for state testing? If you are not a grade 3 through 5 teacher, I'm glad that you're here because it starts in kindergarten. We don't start prepping our students in K2. By the time they get to us at 3-5, they start to freak out because we start using that L word. And that L word is, oh, stressful, and it shouldn't be. So if we do it the right way, from K to 2 and they get to us from 3 to 5, it's just an easy transition. All right, the first document that I would like for you guys to look at is the document that looks like this. This is called our updated scope and sequence. The other documents you can put to the side, we're actually not going to look at them for a little bit. And this is the sit and get part. This is the boring part. There are a few seats up front. We have 2 here, 3 over there, 2 there. So if you need to squeeze in, please feel free. As we go along, if you have any questions, please just ask. On the tables, every other table has a white part, and that white crate part, whatever you want to call it, there are highlighters and pens and pencils and sticky notes and anything that you might need. So if you're sitting at your table and you realize you need an extra tool, please feel free to get up to the next table and grab what you need. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the scope and sequence. The first question we want to know is, how do I know if I'm teaching the right thing? Well, we're very blessed. We're in a state where the State Department gives us our standards. And I say that and nobody laughs. Wow. And from those standards, they have this year created new standards for us, and I say new lightly. But what's great this year is that the State Department didn't just give us a set of standards and say, good luck, teach away. They actually gave us a companion document along with the standards that allows us to know what the expectation of that standard is based off of the State Department who actually makes our state testing. Makes sense. So in your scope and sequence, you're going to see these first 2 columns tell us when to teach what. Now, I need to make sure I say this, and because I have a large group of you guys here with us today, I want to make sure I'm telling you the same thing, or that you hear the same thing that I tell directors, and that's this scope and sequence is a pacing guide. It is to guide you into the right direction. It is to guide us to make sure that we're hitting all of these standards before testing gets here. It is a guide. Now, the directors ask me, well, what does that guide mean? And I share with them that our teachers should be within 2 weeks of what the scope and sequence says. Understand, when I come in from central office to a school building and I put into your classroom, if you're within 2 weeks of that scope and sequence, I might ask you to like, hey, what's got you behind? Just because I need to know, like, next year when we're reviewing the scope and sequence, maybe we should add extra time, or maybe we should take time away, or maybe we should do this or that. If you're 3 weeks behind, then I'm going to go and talk to you and find out specifically, wait, what's going on. And at that point in time, if I can help support you, I will. The reality of it is I can't be at 41 schools all day, every day, so therefore then we can lean on your administrators to help support you on a daily basis. When directors come in, I've shared that with them, that should be the mentality that we're using when we come into your classrooms. This, as a former administrator, this to me is godsend. Because I, as a math person, would go into an English classroom and have to observe and evaluate, and oh my gosh, what do I know about ELA? So then I would have to study before I go in there to make sure that when I went in to evaluate my teacher, it wasn't just about the strategies that they were using, but I wanted to make sure they were teaching the right thing in the right way. So now, our administrators have this as well, and when they come into your classroom, they're more educated on what we should be teaching and how we should be teaching as well. All right, so then when you look at the third column, does anybody notice in your paper, I apologize, it's not color printed, color copied. What do you notice in this third column? And what do you notice about the standards? They're color coded. Does anybody know what the green color stands for? If you look at the very bottom of your scope and sequence, there's a little key. I call it a cheat sheet, but I know we're not supposed to cheat, so we'll call it a key. Okay, and in that key, it shows you that there are 3 cluster levels. I want to make sure I use the right word. Sorry, I got over your shoulder. 3 cluster levels. The first one is the green. Okay, the green cluster level is our major content. That is the most important standards that our students have to learn at our current grade level. So that means by the time they leave 3rd grade, those green standards must be mastered because they might be used next year, but they will not be taught next year. All right, the second color is what color?
Yellow.
Yellow, and what does yellow stand for?
Additional content.
Additional content. So this is the additional content that you're going to start to teach, and then they'll finish learning in grade levels to come. Okay? Then you get to the blue. And what is the blue level? Supporting content. I call these the prerequisite standards. This is the information that you're going to touch on, so therefore it can be fully taught in years to come. So let me ask a quick question. Based off of those descriptions that I gave you, what do you think, which standards do you think are primarily going to be focused on for your grade levels NEAT test? The green. And I'm not saying that the yellow and blue are not important. Notice I did not say that. I just want to point out to you that primarily what you're going to see on the assessment are going to be those green standards. So is it important for me to have that color coded for you? Yes. You can go find it somewhere else, like at the State Department, which is really hard to try to find things, right? How many of you been to Louisiana Police? How many of you found something a certain way yesterday, but you went today and couldn't find it the same way?
Yeah.
Just saying. I'm trying to make things a little bit easier on you guys so you can cut out all that research, and we have it right there for you, all that search time. All right, so now we understand what we're supposed to be teaching, right? With me? The next question is, how do we know if we're actually teaching it correctly? So the first thing we're going to look at is the companion document. We really aren't going to look at it together because you should already have come to one of our workshops where we did this. If you haven't been to one, you need to come to our domain workshops coming up this month. What the companion document does is it actually breaks down. It gives you the explanation and the examples of that standard. Now guys, the companion document is the bare bones of it. It is scratching the surface because it is just telling you the very basic needs of this standard. All right, so we've talked about what we're supposed to be teaching. Now we need to look at how are we supposed to be teaching it. So if you look at the very next column, after we look at the standards, what is the next column titled? MP, what does MP stand for? Say it loud and proud. Woo, mathematical practices. How many of you have been to a workshop on mathematical practices? Ooh, I'm glad to see at least half the room. Yay! Okay. If you have not been to a mathematical practice workshop, no big deal. In this presentation, I've given you the 8 mathematical practices. I've given you the mathematical practice documents that actually help us understand how to utilize these mathematical practices. And you're going to see by the time we get to the end of your scope and sequence, how everything in the scope and sequence connects to the end. All right, so we have mathematical practice 1, which makes sense of problems and persevere in solving them. Mathematical practice 2, which states reason abstractly and quantitatively. Mathematical practice 3, constructs viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. Have you heard that before?
Yes.
How many of you actually went over the practice test last year with your students and totally freaked out when your student had to explain why Johnny was wrong? Or, done that. All right. Mathematical practice 4 is model with mathematics. How many of you have seen those constructive response questions and those weak practice tests that tell the students to model, explain, justify their reasoning? Mathematical practice 5, use appropriate tools strategically. Mathematical practice 6, attend to precision. How many of you have seen weak practice items that tell the students have to precisely tell what they did, right? Mathematical practice 7, look for and make use of structure. And then mathematical practice 8, look for and express regularity in repeated reasoning. So, all 8 of these mathematical practices are supposed to be utilized from kindergarten on. In fact, they don't change on grade level. The way you question your students, the expectations, the tasks that you have your students do within the classroom as they're practicing with their lessons change, obviously, because the older they get, the more rigorous it should be. Oh, that's a word, rigor, huh? All right, so now I know what I'm supposed to teach. And now I want to make sure that I'm teaching it in the right way. So I'm utilizing the mathematical practices because that is a good rule of thumb. But I also want to make sure that I understand what is the right way based off of what the state's department's expectations are. So earlier this year, or actually in the summer, the state released our new standards. And they released the companion document with it, which is good. For now, they tell us, they dissected those standards for us. How many of you guys have heard of dissecting the standards? Right? Done it for us. All right. But like I told you earlier, the companion document is literally just scratching the surface. It is telling us the basics of that standard. My question is how rigorous should I make my lessons? The guessing game is over. Woohoo! Everybody say woohoo! Oh, all right. So about 8 years ago, we started with that lovely R word, rigor, right? And I literally, and this is not a joke, I literally remember being in Baton Rouge in one of those meetings, okay, math meetings, and they told us we need to start making our lessons more rigorous. And I said, okay, well, what does it mean to make it more rigorous? And you know what they told me? Add rigor. I mean, I know I'm a math person, but even I know you're just taking the root word of rigorous and giving me the definition. So finally, kudos, in September, our State Department gave us what is rigor. Woohoo! Give another one to the State Department. All right. So there are 3 components of rigor. And on your scope and sequence, what we did is we took the rigor document, which we've already had a workshop on that as well. We took the rigor document, and instead of you now having to flip through and find the standard that you're on for today or for next week, we just went ahead and put which component of rigor is there for you. So now you no longer have to take your scope and sequence, your supplemental resources, your teacher edition, your companion document, and your rigor document all to the table. We already had it done for you. Okay? This is not something we created. This is something that the state has created, said based off of the test that they're giving at the end of the year. This is the component of rigor our students should be hitting. All right, so there's 3 components of rigor. Can anybody tell me, what does PSF stand for? Procedural skills and fluency. What does APP stand for? And what does CU stand for? If you didn't know that off the top of your head, where do you go to find that? At the bottom of the scope and sequence. Right? It's really that easy. We try to put everything in one spot for you. All right. So let's talk a little bit. What is the difference between PSF, APP, and CU? And I know you guys can't see this, but this is part of the workshop that we did before. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the quick version. You ready? What do you think conceptual understanding is? Go ahead, give me the definition using the root words. Go ahead. Okay. Conceptual understanding, to understand the concept, right? That's what we normally get. Guess what? The State Department actually gave us a real definition. And I'm going to give you the edited version of that. Conceptual understanding, to understand the concept. We have to make sure our students know why they're doing something. It is no longer the days of us doing the multiplication bee. Yes. Everybody knows what a spelling bee is, right? Yeah. How many of you did the multiplication bee before? Right, you stand up until you can't do that multiplication fast and then you sit down. So that's rote memory, right? That's how I learned. I'm sure that's probably how most of us in this room are. But research shows if we don't truly understand why we are doing something, we cannot utilize that concept down the road. So we're not doing our students any justice by just telling them because we said so. Now, we have to do that concrete lesson. We have to do that representational lesson so we can get to the abstract. Make sense? Yes. Then the second component of rigor is our procedural skills and fluency. All right, procedural skills and fluency, give me what the definition is. Procedures, that means what? Step by step. And be able to apply it how? Fluency means what? Is that more of our multiplication bee? So now I conceptually understand it. Therefore, I no longer have to sit and think about it anymore. Now I can do it fast and accurate. If I do it fast and inaccurate, it does me no good. But if I do it fast, I can go back and check my work because I understand it conceptually, because I learned how to do it with conceptual understanding before I was able to do it fluently. That makes sense, right? All right. Then the third component of rigor we have is our application. And what do you guys think application means? You know that word? Apply. Apply how?
Real world.
Real world scenarios. So now I'm taking what I understand conceptually and I can apply it to anything in the real world. I'm going to give you a quick example how different components of rigor work. When I was growing up, we were taught 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8. But we weren't taught that 2 times 3 is 2 groups of 3. So therefore, I could never apply it to 2 vases that contain 3 roses. What? So now if I can conceptually understand and I can do it fluently, then I should be able to apply it to anything. And I'm going to tell you, as much as we talk about the end in mind being that we get our students to pass that end of the year test, that is not our end. Our end is to get those students graduated and successful citizens of the community that we live in. Because guess what? One day when we're old, they're going to be taking care of us. And that's scary if we don't teach them how to think for themselves. So when we use these components of rigor, it's not about making something harder. It's not about making something more strenuous. It's about truly making sure the students can conceptually understand something in order to do it fluently, in order to apply it to the real world scenarios. Good? Okay, I'm off my soapbox. That was a whole nother workshop. All right, so now I know how to teach. I know what I'm teaching. I know how to teach it. For 3rd through 5th grade, I need to understand how I should be assessing it, right? Because it's great if we teach and we do the song and dance, and you can ask Cindy Green, because she's been down my hallway when I was teaching. We did songs and dances. Didn't mean my students were passing. And it surely didn't mean my students were passing the lead. So as a teacher, I had to come to reality and figure out what in the world am I doing wrong. I had the students engaged. We're doing all of the fun strategies. They are learning every day. It wasn't that I wasn't teaching. And it wasn't even that I wasn't teaching the right thing. I just wasn't teaching the right thing in the right way, which was hurting my kids. Not fair to them, and surely not fair to me, considering that now they give me some SPS score based off of whatever, not SPS score, but whatever that score is, that you can get a bonus if you got this right, whatever happened to that money. Anyway, sorry. I'm gonna try to watch what I say. So regardless, it's not about what I can get, it's about what I can do for my students to make them better. Because in the end, if I'm making my students better, when I see them out in the real world, I won't be freaking out. I'll be more comfortable knowing that they're ready for the real world. All right, so let's talk about our testing. So when we get to the State Department's assessment guide, which anybody looked at the assessment guide for this year? I should see everybody's hand. It's okay. It's a long document, and it has some wonderful, wonderful information in there. It does. It's great. Except for how much time do you have to look through 24 pages of information? Because, you know, what's the one thing teachers need more than anything? Time. So, again, trying to cut some of that used time out for you. We put it all in one document. So now, let's go back. When we're planning, we have our teacher edition, we have our scope and sequence, we have our supplemental resources, we have our companion document, we have our rigor document. Oh, and by the way, because we teach 3rd through 5th grade now, we have our assessment guide. That is 6 things you have to bring to the table to look through to make sure you're teaching the right thing in the right way to prepare our students for assessments. I'm sorry, I think that's a bit much. It's all wonderful information. Y'all, we spent this entire school year learning all 6 of those documents. What we've done for you now, we put it all in one spot. So now that we have been educated on how useful these documents are, and we know how to use these documents, and now we understand these documents, we put them in our binder, we look at this and we say, oh, okay, so I need to use that with conceptual understanding. Oh, okay, well I have to use this task type. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time on task types today because I think that's the one workshop we haven't gotten into. And it's probably one of the most important. All right, so if you guys look at the very last column, how many task types are there? 3. There are 3. Okay, and I used to think that task types were based off of formats. And the more research that I do, because I have those awesome teachers who ask me those probing questions, I learned that it's not necessarily about the format of the question, it's about how the student's supposed to be answering the question. Because we can see 2-step problems in a multiple choice. We can see it as a multi-select. We can see it as a short answer. We can see it as constructive response. How we are asking the students to reply is how we are determining which task type it is. So if you look at the very bottom, there's a little key for you. And I want you to take a moment and I want you to look at what is the difference between type 1, type 2, and type 3. I'm literally giving you 15 seconds. Go. Time's up. All right, so now we're going to look at it together. God bless you. I want you to look at type 1. When you look at type 1, you see the words conceptual understanding, conceptual understanding, I was putting understanding and fluency together, fluency and application. Does that sound familiar? Those are the what? All right, so then we look at type 2. When we look at type 2, it says written arguments, justification, critique of reasoning, or precision in mathematical statements. Does that sound something familiar that we've talked about already today? Say it again. The mathematical practices. All All right, then when we look at type 3, modeling and application in a real world context and scenario. Does that sound familiar? Where did we hear that before? That comes from a component of rigor, and it comes from our mathematical practices. So do you see how it's super important that we're practicing math correctly and that we're doing it at the appropriate level of rigor? I told you by the time we got to the last column, we'd see how it's all tied in together. So now we know what to teach, we know how to teach it, and we understand that there are different ways that those components of rigor are going to be assessed. So this is the part you guys came for, right? Here is a snippet of the assessment guide. So when we look at the assessment guide, it shows us, ooh, play it loud. Got excited, music. Okay. When we look at the assessment guide that was released by our State Department, again, very lengthy, I pulled out what I think at this point for today's workshop is most important. And specifically, it talks about the task type. Someone have like a paper. Is that hard of me? If I make a weird face at y'all, please know it's not you. I just had a sharp pain hit me and it's okay. I should have said that to the end. I was at a workshop last week and I had this sharp pain hit me and I was making this face and the teacher was like, did I say something? I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It sounded like I was breaking up with her or something. Anyway, all right, so here you notice one of the parts of the assessment guide is it specifically gives you a description of our task types. Do you guys see this? Does it look familiar to what's on your scope and sequence? Okay. Then it tells you the reporting categories here. So when we look at type 1 questions, it's going to have your major content, and you want to solve problems involving your major contents for your grade level. When you get to the additional and supporting content, guess what they want you to do? Solve problems involving the additional and supporting content for your grade level. 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, the assessment guide does not change. The expectations do not change. What changes are the standards that are assessed. So how they're being assessed is the exact same format. The only thing that changes, obviously, are the standards. All right? When we look at our type 2 questions, we have express mathematical reasoning. It says express mathematical reasoning by constructing mathematical arguments and critiques. Sound familiar? Then when we get to type 3, modeling and application, solve real-world problems engaging particularly in the modeling practice. Guys, this is not anything new. The mathematical practices have been around as long as I can remember. The thing is that we've never discussed them and we've never aligned them to the standards in which our students are going to be assessed on. So kudos again to the State Department for finally giving us that document that says, this is what you need to teach, this is how you need to teach it, because this is how they're going to be assessed. Therefore, how they're going to be assessed at the end of the year should be how we are assessing them every day in class. Does that mean we have to give them a formal assessment every day in class? Okay. And then if you look at this last column, what? The mathematical practices are there. Specifically, if you look, type 1, you can involve any or all of the mathematical practices. Type 1 is going to be the majority of our test. But when we move into type 2, notice that it's primarily focusing on mathematical practices 3 and 6. And then when we get to type 3, it's primarily focusing on mathematical practice 4. The workshops we have been working on throughout this year has prepared us for this. So this is nothing new. What we're doing today is organizing our thoughts, understanding why it is we do what we do, and making sure that what we do for the next several weeks is aligned to what the state is saying we need to have our students ready for. Make sense? Everybody good? Thumbs up? Okay, good. All right, I'm hopping back down now. Okay, so here is 4th grade. Does it look any different than 3rd grade? Here's 5th grade. Does it look any different than 4th or 3rd grade? So again, the formatting is the same. The only thing that's changing is the standards. Are the standards? Is the standards? Okay. So then the question that we always want to know, and I'm not exactly sure why anybody other than math people would ask this question, but it's funny. We want to know how much is each question worth and blah, 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 because we want to try to figure out, and guess what? We try to figure it out. It doesn't matter because they fix it every year. They make the bell curve every year a little different. Okay, but for you guys to know, notice in grade 3, sessions 1, 2, and 3 all consume type 1, 2, and 3 questions. Notice the point value, okay? So if we look at our type 1 points, you can see type 1 is primarily what our test is focusing on. Okay, so that means all of those green standards are probably going to have a type 1 question. And then as we go down to type 2 and type 3, they minimize, but notice in session 3, we have the most type 3 questions there. Everybody see that? Okay. And again, this is all in your assessment guide that you are more than welcome to go read through in your spare time, because we have that. All right, look at grade 4. Is it any different? Look at grade 5. Is it any different? So here's an idea. If we're expecting our kids to do this for grades 3, 4, and 5, shouldn't we be expecting them to do this in K2 as well? So guess what? Our K2 teachers have a scope and sequence that looks just like yours. The only thing is they're missing that last column because we don't have task types released from an assessment guide. So what the state has done is they truly have created this to where they see that what the kids do in kindergarten affects what they do all the way through high school. And they've actually shared that with us. So now we can understand how our students are supposed to grow. Now when we collaborate grade level to grade level, there's not a guessing game. So if I have a standard that I'm teaching in 2nd grade that's going to be taught in 3rd grade, that's also going to be taught in 4th grade, I know in 2nd grade they learned it this way. In 3rd grade they learned it that way. In 4th grade I need to teach it this way using what they've already learned. Make sense? Okay, so what's out there? And how do we know if what we're using is appropriate? So we know that we have these task types, right? Are y'all warm? I see you fanning. I see a few of you fanning. We're gonna put these. No? Okay, I have some people that are cold, some people that are warm. If you're too warm, start unlayering. Unless you don't have layers to unlayer, don't start unlayering. Okay, sorry. So the first place, obviously, because this is where our district has spent their big bucks, is our Go Math textbook, okay? We don't want you to have to go out and hunt for things. We don't, okay? When the textbook committee was put together, that was one of the things that they told us, because I wasn't in this position at that point in time. I was an administrator at that point in time. And they told us that when we're looking for our book, our primary resource that we're going to adopt, it needs to be something that is what is most beneficial for our students, and it needs to be most beneficial for our teachers. So therefore, they're not spending a lot of time hunting and searching. If Go Math does not hit the mathematical practice, the component of rigor, or the task type, then you go to the supplemental lessons. If you notice that really big column in the middle, those are your supplemental lessons. We have a GAP team, a team of teachers who have gone through all of the lessons for the 3rd 9 weeks and have said, this is where the gaps are, and this is what you need to fill it with. Instead of saying, oh, we know there's gaps, so go find something. We've done that for you. Because we can go and Google and find tons of things on Google, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's hitting or filling the gap that we need to fill. So we've done that for you. If for some reason the Go Math lesson or the supplemental lessons do not hit the mathematical practices, the components of rigor, and the task types that are aligned to that standard that you're teaching, then you have the LEAP practice test, you have the PARC practice test, you have Illuminate, what? Super easy to use, and you have EAGLE. So last week, several of your campuses sent campus champions to the EAGLE training in order for you guys to make sure that you had your DRC logins and passwords. If you have them today, that's great, because that's what I asked. But if you don't, you need to make sure, if you have not gotten your DRC login, You need it. Because everything that the state releases, including the practice test, is through DRC. So I'm going to ask you real quickly as a group, what must you have in order to access things like Eagle or the practice test? If you haven't gotten it, who are you going to contact? Are you going to contact me?
No.
This is the one thing I can't help you guys out on. Yes, you should have gotten multiple emails, but here's what happens. If you don't answer that email like within 24 hours, they reset your password. Exactly. And then if that doesn't work for you, you go to your campus champion. And if that doesn't work for you, okay. So let's talk about going to the DRC. Because if you go to the DRC right now, you will notice that there is a LEAP practice test in there. And you can click on it. You can access it, but you can't see it. So I probably thought ahead of time, and when I met with the State Department in October, asked, when is this going to be released? And they said early winter, and I was like, okay, winter for us is like November, and we see it for a day or two, and then December, and see it for a day or two, and then that's it. And so I asked, what does early winter mean? They said, probably January. I said, okay, no problem. Well, I went up there the Wednesday that everybody, we were all on Christmas break. The Wednesday before we came back, I was at the office, and it wasn't there. So in October, I said, just in case, what is something else we can use? And they're like, oh, just use the LEAP practice test. Use the LEAP practice test from last year. It's not going to change that much. Great. And if you need extra, go to Park. Great. And if you need extra, go to Eagle. Great. So now I've told you where to go get these, right? All right. So let's talk about what we're going to do with these once we have them. Remember, in type 2, we're focusing primarily on which two mathematical practices? 3 and 6. And then type 3, we're primarily focusing on 4. So mathematical practice 3. And this is what we really, really need to make sure we understand. Mathematical practice 3 tells us that we have to construct valuable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. Guys, if you don't understand what that means, which I totally did because I would not have understood that if I did not go back and research, this page right here, don't tell your students. Let them think that you know everything. It's right there. It tells you, it gives you a dissection of the practice in the left column. In the right block, it gives you questions that you can use to probe students. And even what would be better is eventually that you give these questions to your students and they start in their small groups asking each other these mathematical questions. And then it gives you tasks that are aligned to this practice, and then it tells you what you as the teacher should be doing when you're planning and what you should be doing while you're giving the lesson. It's amazing. It's all there for you. It's in the mathematical practices documents that we gave out, which you can also locate at, anybody want to tell where you can locate it?
CaddoMath.org.
Say it loud, say it loud. What?
CaddoMath.org.
CaddoMath.org. No. You don't have it today. It was a workshop we did in the fall. And when you get this presentation, you'll have it as well. All right, so mathematical practice 6 states to attend to precision. So this means our students have to attend to precision 2 ways. They have to understand why Johnny did something wrong. Choose the 3 things that Johnny did wrong, right? You've seen those before. Or they're going to have to precisely tell what they did in their constructive response, right? And then we have mathematical practice 4, which is your model with mathematics. And this is how I explain this to my students. When you are taking the test and you get to the constructive response section, you need to write like I have no idea what you're talking about. And when I say justify your reasoning, explain your answer, that means I want you, remember when we drew those pictures? You need to draw those pictures. Because obviously the kids can't bring in manipulatives and teach me the lesson, right? But they surely can draw something for me to understand, and they can write for me to understand. So if we put our kids into that frame of mind, in order for them to do that, do they have to conceptually understand? Do they have to be able to fluently be able to go back and check their work?
Yes.
And obviously it's constructive response, they have to do a little bit of application. Do you see how it all ties together? Okay, good. So how do we know if we need to supplement? Okay, so remember I told you guys that we're obviously going to start with our primary resource, Go Math. Then we go to our supplemental resources that have already been given to you. And then if that doesn't work, then we need to pull our task types from Leap, Park, Eagle, Eliminate, right? What we're going to learn today from this point forward is we're going to practice on determining if the questions that we have are actually hitting the assessment guide's recommendations for task types. Make sense? All right, I need you guys to do me a quick favor. By the time I get to 0, I need for you to stand up, find someone from your table, not from your table, excuse me, someone that is not at your table. And I want you to, obviously introduce yourselves. And then I'm gonna, once we found somebody, y'all hands up, pair up, got it? Okay. After you introduce yourselves, I'm gonna see everybody's hands up, I'm gonna see pair it up. Come on, pair with me, let's demonstrate. Sweet, okay, once I see everybody has a partner, and if we end up with an odd number, we can have a group of 3, I'm okay with that. I want you to introduce yourselves, and then once I see everybody paired up, I'm gonna literally give you 1 minute. And in 1 minute, the person who is closest to the ceiling will start.
Yes.
Notice I didn't say the person closest to the ceiling. That would always be me. Thanks to the right here. The person who is closest to the ceiling will start, and I want you in 30 seconds just to say, what do you think is the most important thing we've talked about so far? And then at 30 seconds, you switch. So those of us who like to talk, don't take the whole minute. Okay? All right, you have 10 seconds. Pair up. 10, 9, there's 4 seconds. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pair up. All right, you have 1 minute. Move. You have 10 seconds to return to your seat in 10, 9, 8, students, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, y'all, you can sit down and got quiet. Whoop, whoop, in front, y'all. All right, so we're going to go through one more session, and this was a little bit more brief than the last, but I felt that the last one was super important because we have to truly understand why. Oh, we have to conceptually understand what we're doing. And then the next part, we'll actually be able to do it procedurally and with fluency, and then you'll actually be able to apply it. Oh, I'm using my own stuff. Okay, sorry, yeah, there we go. All right, so we're going to go through a little bit here. At this point in time, this is where you need your electronic device. If you did not bring one, make sure you're sitting next to someone who does. Plugs are here. Here is some over there, and there's some all around the room. All right, so what I would like for you guys this time, this is for me to assess to see where we are as a class. I need for you to log on to Think Central. Oh. Okay, somebody walk me through it. If you don't know how to access Think Central, where do we go? Caddomath.org. When we go to caddomath.org, I just got a little Cajun come out of me. When we get to caddomath.org, where do you go? Teacher resources. And then when you get to teacher resources, you go to Think Central. If you don't know your login and password, look over the shoulder of somebody else. Email me and tell me you don't know it so I can send it to you tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to walk through it if you guys aren't familiar. We're going to caddomath.org. Okay, so from caddomath.org, I click on Teacher Resources. If you're on an iPad, you got to go to those 3 lines. Click on Teacher Resources. And if y'all ever see Roger Vance, tell him thank you, because I just asked him to put these on here. All right, when you click on Teachers, it'll give you some colored blocks. I'm not there yet.
Same spot. This one is successfully driven.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the yellow block. The yellow block. See, I'm wrong. It's the blue block. It says curriculum sites. Where it says K to 5, you don't see the picture there, but that's the Think Central picture. Just trust me. I just figured if I do, they give you time to get in there. Maybe so. Okay, let me see if your table, if we have one person set up, raise your hand. At your table, we have at least one person online. All right, guess what? That one person or 2 people are going to be your buddies for a few minutes. Go look over their shoulders. And that person is going to be the person who gets to choose their grade level to work from here. All right, so log into Think Central.
Get on there.
All right, so the teacher who has theirs up, if you will look at your scope and sequence, so let's pretend I am a 5th grade teacher.
Really?
I am on week 19, because we know we just finished week 19, so I'm not going to plan for you, we're just going to go back for a minute. All right, and I know that I'm supposed to be teaching chapter 7, lesson 1 through 4 this week. How do I get to chapter 7 once I'm in Pink Central? Anybody? Make sure you select Go Math first, okay? Then from there, you're going to select your grade level. Make sure you select your grade level. And then you see a bunch of blocks, right?
Yes.
Which block do you want to choose? What is it called? Teacher edition. What? You mean I don't have to carry those books home every day with me?
No.
No. All right, so click on teacher edition. And I want you to find your chapter. So my sister's an ELA person, and she's like, what? Get rid of books? And this is just whenever I don't want you to carry books around with you for purposes of today. All right, so we're going to look at that lesson. And I want you to peruse through that lesson. And I want you to specifically look at the lesson for your grade level. And I want you to see, for example, in 5th grade, we're supposed to be teaching standard 5 and F4A. We're supposed to be focusing on mathematical practices 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I know that specifically, according to my scope and sequence, that I'm supposed to be covering type questions 1, 2, and 3. Therefore, which mathematical practices do I primarily focus? That was a question. Very good. 3, 4, and 6. So I want you to look through that lesson and see if it covers mathematical practices 3, 4, and 6. Do we remember what mathematical practices 3, 4, and 6 were? Here, I'll pull them up for you. On the teacher's edition, you're going to the chapter and lesson that we should be covering first for the 19th week 19. Thank you for the questions. Okay, we want to see if that lesson teaches primarily mathematical practices 3, 4, and 6. Okay, mathematical practices 3 and 6, we're going to be focusing on expressing mathematical reasoning by constructing mathematical arguments and critiques. And then for type 3, mathematical practice 4, we're primarily focusing on solving real-world problems, engaging particularly in the modeling practice. Okay, so it's up there on the board for you. Look through that lesson and see if that lesson covers that. Okay, I'm going to give you a hint. Look at the supplemental lessons block. Since we're stuck with internet issues, look at the supplemental lessons block. There's a hint. Do you see where it says condensed 7172? Additional practice, Engage New York, Module 4, Lessons 6 and 7. That means there's a gap in those lessons. That means that Go Math might not have covered all of the mathematical practices that are aligned to the task types that we're teaching. Okay? So now I'm going to use, because I know how important it is to make sure I'm primarily focusing on mathematical practices 3, 4, and 6. And we know if we do 3, 4, and 6, then all the other 8 go with it. So therefore, type 1 questions are taken care of, right? All right. So now what I want you guys to do is I want you to see how easy it is to access that supplemental lesson. Are you ready? Everybody ready?
Yes.
Minimize that screen, go back to caddomath.org. Minimize that page, go back to caddomath.org. This is why I don't use Macs. I'm learning. Okay, when you're back at caddomath.org, I want you to go to your scope and sequence. Anybody want to tell me how to get there? Better directions, please.
Teacher resources.
Okay, you can go to where first? Teacher resources. Go ahead, tell us again.
Go to teacher resources, click on elementary school and grade. Oh, that's what you want. And updated version.
Everybody, give her our affirmation. Let's give her a round of applause. All right, everybody there? Okay, it's going to pop up. Guess what that's going to be for you guys? And a color code for you. All right. Let me give you a real quick tip. When we look at the MPs, if you see a green MP number, that green MP means that MP is taught in Go Math. Green means go Math. Okay? If you see MP in red, guess what that means? Stop! It's not in Go Math. Okay, so green means go Math. Red means stop and supplement. Okay? I'll try to make it as easy as possible for us to remember. Green, go Math. Red, stop, supplement. Now, where do we go to supplement? Whatever the supplemental lesson tells us to do. So I'm going to teach you guys something that teachers taught me when I first presented this. You ready? It's so cool. I need you to, unless you're on an iPad, sorry, you'll have to copy and paste. I need you to highlight where it says whatever it is you are supplementing with. So in this case, it's Engage New York, and mine's still thinking. Sorry. When you highlight it, right-click on the highlights. Normally, we would copy and then paste into another page. You don't have to do that anymore. If you look right underneath the word copy, it says Google search, and it brings you directly to your supplemental lesson. Yes! Isn't that amazing? You can highlight it from here, and it'll take you, not from your paper. That would be magical. This room is great, but I'll try to very best. Okay, the only thing that I recommend at this point is when you put in that, when you highlight it and you go to that Google search, I'm giving you the fast version, ready? Yellow blocks, focus, sequence, space, and guide, click on elementary. Go to updated, third memory. I'm going to third grade just because. Isn't that the most cool thing ever? No, I didn't do that. A teacher taught me that. I'm surprised my kids didn't teach that. All right, so, okay, I was trying to do it for you. The only thing I suggest for you to do is once it gets to that Google site, once you get to the Google page, it gives you a bunch of things to minimize your search, to give it more constraints, I guess is what you would say, I don't know. Just type your grade level in behind it. So like in this example, this is 5th grade, so I would have highlighted Engage New York Module 4, Lesson 6 and 7, and then clicked on Google Search. When it pulls it up, I would have just typed in grade 5 behind it in the Google search, just so I don't have to sit there and waste more time hunting for grade 5. Just trying to take out some time for you guys. Oh, thank you. Okay. So this was a Learn Zillion. So literally, I'm going to try to do this as math. Learn Zillion, Unit 1, Lesson 7. You see how I highlighted it? Right. Then I'm going to right-click on it. You see where it says copy? Normally, we'd copy and then open another window and paste it. You don't have to do that anymore. You just click on Search Google for Learn Zillion, Unit 1, Lesson 7. When it gets there, I'm going to type in grade 3 behind it, like so. Hey, let's take a minute and wave to everybody. Okay, sorry. And there it is, 3rd grade. And do you see right there where it says just the 7? That's the Learn Zillion lesson. You just, isn't that awesome? I was like, yay, teachers taught me something. I love when people teach me things. Okay, sorry. The recommendation that I have with your supplemental lessons is remember that these are lessons that we're supplementing in addition to, sometimes in addition to what we've already taught. So this would not be something I would let my students do on their own. This is something that either if it's the full lesson that I have to teach, I would obviously teach the full lesson. But if I'm pulling for additional practice, that additional practice I would do in a rotation station where they come to the teacher table. Because obviously it didn't hit the component of rigor that is expected of them. That's why we had that gap. So therefore, it might be something that they might have trouble with. So therefore, I would do this at the teacher table. But everything's there for you. The lesson plan, the materials you need, and it even talks to the teacher about the lesson. It's pretty cool. All right, so now, we've gone through Go Math, we've gone through our supplemental lessons, but we really want to go and look what the State Department has released for their practice test. For those of you who prefer computers, you are more than welcome at this time to go to the practice test from 16, 15, 16, because 16, 17 we don't have access to yet. Or for those of you who prefer paper, guess what you have in your hand next? The lead practice test from 15. Now I'm going to assess you guys. Are you ready? Before we assess, you can hear me clap once, clap twice, 3 times. All right, super duper. Okay, here's where we're going. We're going to practice to make sure we truly understand the task types. Are you ready? Everybody ready? All right, you have 2 thick packets. One is the practice test itself. The other is the answer key. We call them answer keys. They call them something else. Scoring guides online. Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do. I want you to go to your scoring guide first, the answer key. Okay? Park is set up almost exactly the same way. So how I'm showing you how to utilize this resource is how you can also use the resource for Park. Everything that we have recommended to you guys, Park, Lead Practice, Illuminate, Eagle, Go Math, is all aligned to the standards. So obviously, if I'm teaching today Standard 5 NF4A, then I want to go find the question that is aligned to that standard. So when you're looking at your scoring guide, the answer key, you're going to notice the first column is the session. Remember we talked about sessions 1, 2, and 3. Then it gives you the sequence. Now guys, I don't know why they call it a sequence, that's just the item number. Okay. The next column is your key. So that tells you can see if it's multiple choice, multi-select, or constructed response. And then you get to the last column, it's called accessible content. That tells you which standard this question is aligned to. No more guessing. Last year, I don't know if you guys got the packets, but I literally went in and I gave your administrators a copy where I hand wrote in which standard it was aligned to, just because it was easier than you guys having to flip back and forth. At the same token, I thought, you know what, we should probably learn how to do this, so therefore, if something happens to Sommer, everybody can do it on their own. Duh, that makes sense. All right, so what I want you to do is look at your scope and sequence, and I want you to look at the very first standard that you're supposed to be teaching this week or last week for your grade level. And then I want you to go into the scoring guide, find that standard, determine which question is aligned to that standard, and then turn to that question in the practice test.
A lot of it.
When you found your test question, raise your paper in your hair, be proud like you just won bingo. Woo! Raise your test paper in the air. Make sure we know that you have your question. Once I see everybody's questions, we move on. If I see half the room, we're gonna move on anyway. Quicker I see you up, the quicker we move on. Yes, ma'am, there are more course rates for guides. There will be one.
It's a sign. You know what makes this one? They'll go ahead on it. You want it tight. You want it to right.
I just had an amazing question. You know how when your students ask those amazing questions, especially when it's somebody in there evaluating, you're like, oh, that's a 4. Okay, I just had a 4. The question was, for our students who are taking the assessment online, specifically our interim assessments. Everybody with me, interim assessments? Okay. We know that this year our 5th grade students have to take that assessment online. We give the option for our 3rd and 4th grade students to take their interim assessments also online. But there's not a drawing tool on the interim assessments. So can we give our students an answer document that gives them space to do the modeling? Yes, because who puts the grades in for the constructor response part of the interim?
We do.
The teacher. So if we are teaching them a certain way that prepares them for the end of the year assessment, shouldn't that be how we're assessing them in our classroom on a regular basis? Shouldn't that be how we assess them for interim assessments? Okay, so please know that as the teacher, you have the autonomy to make sure your students are being exposed to the expectations that have been set by the state. Make sense? That's easy. You can raise that part anyway. All right. Everybody have a question? Everybody has their practice test question. All right. Here's your assessment for this part. Are you ready? Based off of what we know about type 1, type 2, and type 3 questions, I want you to determine, is that question type 1, type 2, or 3? I'm literally giving you a little bit more than 30 seconds to determine if that question you just found is type 1, type 2, or type 3.
I agree. It is all of
Yes,
It's like 2 plus 2. What's some words, and then what is the test? And it's like 4 times.
All right, I need a thumbs up if you think you know the right answer. Ooh, I love y'all are so confident. That is awesome. All right, so I need someone to be brave as a 3rd grade teacher to stand. We're going to do popcorn, so the first one that stands gets to do it, and don't everybody sit to be the last one to stand. I need a 3rd grade teacher to stand up and read your question once I bring you the microphone out loud. 3rd grade teacher, please be brave. Go. Thank you, ma'am. Cheryl, you're so awesome. Are you have your question ready, ma'am? Okay, before we start, I have a quick question. When we're trying to determine which task type it is, what are we looking for? Speak loud, speak loud. Okay, so when I'm looking for the components of rigor, does that necessarily fall within the question? Within the given information? Yes, ma'am?
To identify a type 1 question, normally it's going to be a multiple choice question. It is going to be computation.
Okay, great. So we're going to look at the components of rigor, we're going to look at the mathematical practices, and 9 times out of 10, our type 1 questions are going to be those computation. How do we get the answer? Quick, fluently, accurately, right? So then when we get to type 2 questions, what's the difference? Okay, let's look at type 2 again. Oh, I don't have it up there. Justification, explanation. So do we necessarily have to write?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So type 2 could be multiple choice, multi-select, or constructive response. All right? So what makes type 2 different from type 3? Okay, so for type 2, we have to critique the reasoning, right? In type 3, we have to model to justify our reasoning. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that change the way you look at a question? Yes. So it's not the format of the question, but it's what we are expecting the student to be able to do. All right, so let's listen to the grade 3, and then based off of those brief descriptions of type 1, type 2, and type 3 questions, let's see if you all agree with what Cheryl believes this question is.
Okay, we chose question number 14 on the practice test, the 3rd grade practice test. Mr. Haley bought a total of 36 pictures. The pictures are only sold in packages. Each package came with 4 small pictures, 3 medium pictures, and 2 large pictures. How many pictures were in each package? Show your work. How many packages did he buy? Show your work. Enter your answer and your work in the box provided.
All right, so I'm going to read what the specific directions were to the student. And then I want you to raise your hand. This means you think it's a type 1. This means you think it's a type 2. Guess what you have to do for type 3? All right, good job. All right, so here we go. How many pictures were in each package? Show your work. How many packages did he buy? Show your work. Enter your answers and your work in the box provided. Go ahead, tell me what you think. Ooh, I see some. All right. There is no 4, sister. Okay, so let's talk about it. I see 2s and I see 3s. Everybody automatically knows it's not a 1, right? Because it's not just asking for an answer. If it's just asking for an answer. If it didn't say show, it'd be a 1. Okay? So now what's the difference between a 2 and a 3? Did we have to model here? Notice what it says. Show your work. So this could be a 2, but because we're not sure what they mean by show your work, we're going to treat this like it's a 3. Because in a 3, we have to give an answer, we have to explain what we did, and we have to model. We don't know what their definition of show your work is. So therefore, with my students, I'm making them treat this like a type 3. Does that make sense? Because they didn't necessarily use the word model. And I'm going to tell you, as you look through these problems, it's probably not going to tell you to model. They're going to say, show your work. And show, you need to explain and model. Okay? Rule of thumb. If we teach them how to do it in a type 3 way and they give too much of a good thing, it's not going to hurt them. Right? I'm just saying, if I'm reading the book, the more details you give me about the book, the better it is. That's what makes a book a good book, is because it's fun to read because you have the details. I'm not a reader, but if I like to read, that's what I mean. All right. So my question to my 3rd grade teachers is this. According to your scope and sequence, do your students need to be able to do only task 3 type of questions? No. They also have to do what? 1 and 2. So my principal gives me this packet and says, go practice this test. If all my practice is type 3 questions, am I doing my student justice? But now as a teacher, you know what the difference is between the types of tasks that we have to expose our students to. If our textbook doesn't have it, if our supplemental resources do not have it, if our practice tests do not have it, can you create one for them? Yes. Yes. And that's what we need to do. All right, 4th grade teacher, pop up, be proud. Any 4th grade teacher? 4th grade teacher. I knew I should have sat you on my grade level. 4th grade teachers. Oh, yay! Everybody give a round of applause. Just the same. All right, everybody for the signals, right? I taught you the hand signals. All right.
4th grade test number 31. Select the 2 sums that are equal to 3 and 3. It is multiple choice.
It is a multiple choice question, and specifically the direction says to select the 2 sums. Raise your hand, let's see what you think it is. Oh, good job, you all agree. It is a 1. Why is it not a 2? There's no reasoning behind it, right? Why is it not a 3? There's no modeling. No showing your work. That's right. All right. 5th grade teacher, be brave. Ready, set, go. All right. Round of applause. Okay, fifth grade, question 23. It says, Lee incorrectly added the fractions 2/3, 1/2, and 5/12. She said that to add the fractions with different denominators, use the common denominator and add the numerators. And then Leah's work is shown. There are 3 questions. What is Leah's mistake? Find the correct value, and then show your work or explain your answer. Hands up, let's see. So the first question was, what is Leah's mistake? Second is find the correct value. And the third one is show your work. If we were doing just what is Leah's mistake, what would that be? That would be a 2. Then it says to find the correct value, that would be a what? And then it says show your work or explain your answer. So it's all 3, but we want to make sure we teach them. There's that 4. We're all 3 are together. There was a 4. Good job. On 6 more. All right. Do I have any questions about the different task types that we have? Okay, now here's the thing. We have to figure out how do we implement these task types all year long in a lesson, right? Now we know what they are. Everybody, please, if you're confused on what the difference is, let us know. Because we need to make sure, because for us to do the last part of our session today, we have to understand our mathematical practices, our components of rigor, and most importantly, our action. If you are not comfortable with this, there is no shame in our game, okay? Trust me, I've been doing this for several weeks now to prepare for today. It's not something that just comes quickly and easily. If you need help on our last part of today's workshop, please make sure you ask someone at your table for assistance. If they cannot assist you, then you go to me. If we were in my classroom, I'd say 3 before me, but that's okay, we don't have to get it. Okay? All right, so are you ready for your assignment? In the next hour, you're getting 1 hour to prep. In the next hour, you are coming up with your lesson plans that incorporate task types. If you don't have it in your LEAP packet, where do you go to find it? CaddoMath.org, you can get to what? Eagle, Park Practice, Illuminate. You have access to all of those things. Your job today, before you leave here, is to get through at least weeks 19, 20, 21, and 22 before you leave here today. And I'm telling you guys, your principal said, why should I allow my teachers off campus to come to your workshop? I said, because they're gonna learn a lot of stuff. And they said, well, that's great. How are they gonna apply it? I said, they're even gonna walk out with something that they can utilize when they walk back into the classroom tomorrow. And this is the only way we can justify being able to pull you guys out, because you could be at school today, you know, pushing papers or something, or you could be here planning and prepping appropriately. Because now we know what to teach, how to teach it, and to make sure that the what and the how is being done in order to prep our students for testing. Make sense? Exactly, specifically. Weeks 19, that was last week, so that one should be easy. 20, 21, and 22. You are prepping your lesson plans to incorporate into the task types into your lessons. Go Math might already have it. If Go Math does not have it, then you can go to your supplemental resources. If your supplemental resources do not cover all task types, then you go to your practice tests, Eagle or Louis. Good? If you can hear me, raise your right hand. If you can hear me, raise your left hand. I don't mean to interrupt, but as I'm walking around the table, I'm going to pick the microphone. I'm going to repeat questions that are here that are good questions. So one of the questions was, in our Go Math, in our scope and sequence, it says to teach the lesson as is. And that means that Go Math should be hitting the mathematical practices that are aligned to our state expectations. But that doesn't necessarily mean that through all of the practice problems they have, they hit all task types. So we're making sure that within that lesson that we're hitting all of those task types. If Go Math doesn't have it, then we pull in from our supplemental resources. If there aren't any supplemental resources, we pull in from Leap, Park, Eliminate, or Equal. Does this make sense? Thank you. Another great question. The question was, right hand, left hand. Okay, the question was this. If I'm in my Go Math lesson and they hit all 3 task types, you're good. You don't need to pull anything else out, right? Don't put more work on yourself. Second, if I go to that supplemental lesson and the practice problems that are within that supplemental lesson, if it hits all of those task types, you're good, you're done. It's when Go Math or your supplemental resources do not hit those task types, then we need to go and pull from Leap, Park, Illuminate, or Eagle. If you need extra practice, then you can go pull. Good deal? Okay. Okay, guys. Yeah, I'm sorry. Right hand, left hand, hands down. Real quickly. You have your lesson plan templates. You have your lesson plan format already. You're trying to pull things that you're implementing into those lesson plans. So for example, we have some overachievers who like to plan like a year in advance, which is great. But a year ago, we might not have known this information. So I'm not asking you to change what you do. I'm asking you to implement this to what you're already doing. So if you know I already have next week's lesson plans done at home, but I don't have them with me today, now I'm pulling what I'm implementing in, and when I go back to school, because your administrators are expecting you to be able to do that. Does that make sense? So that's going to be one more thing that we're checking on in lesson plans, make sure we're exposing our kids to questions that are aligned with the task types.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And then on that, I mentioned this.
Like for each test, like which yeah, it's wrong. Right hand, left hand, hands down. Another great question, because we have our fifth graders who will be testing online this year. Is it important for us to implement task types that are aligned to the standards based off of what the state expectations are every day in our classroom? Correct answer is yes. Even if they're fifth grade, yes. But what about my students who are in fifth grade that have to take the state test online? Guys, it is still our responsibility to expose them to the format of the test as well. So our third and fourth grade teachers, we could literally copy and paste these types of questions that are aligned to the appropriate task types and utilize them. We can still do that with the fifth grade practice test, but our fifth grade teachers need to make a point to get our students into a computer lab, not for a week, but a day here this month, a day there next month, and a day there the next month. So therefore, they've at least had 3 opportunities to practice that online test. So please make sure there's an online practice test through Louisiana Believes. Okay, so please make sure that we're not just exposing them to the task types for our fifth graders, but we also need to make sure we're exposing them, and for all of our kids, they need to understand what multi-select questions are. They need to understand how to bubble in. Even though they have to write the number at the top of the box, they still have to bubble in at the bottom. And then for our fifth graders, we really need to make sure that they are familiar with those online testing tools, which is all accessible through Louisiana Believes.
Oh my
Hey, guess what? That just said I passed my that just made me training college. Isn't that cool? She goes, she's like, Right, so she has 3 clocks going. She makes waves to do it. Usually so. Well, it's funny is because there was one time that I was actually happy with this. And taking care of some gifts, and I was like, what? No, right? Yeah. I can't believe that. Yeah,
Left hand. Right hand. Hands down. Another great question. How can we use these in our classroom outside of practicing within our lesson? Great answer. Bell ringer. Exit tickets. Not RTI. Wrong. Okay, let me clarify real quickly. When we say RTI, that is not on grade level. Okay, and all we're doing today is on grade level. Okay, so we can use these small group activities, independent practice. If we use this as small group or independent practices, we need to make sure that our students are doing it correctly, so they need to turn it in. Okay, you can create these types of problems through Illuminate and have them just scan it themselves so you don't have to grade it, right? Okay, there's all kind of different opportunities there. Thank you.
No idea what I was going to do. So now I'm back to the ace. I have to stop my She told me. Do you know what I'm saying? Oh my God, you're in serious That's not yellow. No, this one came down.
Excuse me. I'd like to have attention for just a minute. You can hear me clap once, twice.
Issue, Summer's gonna get embarrassed when I do this, but I must do this. I want y'all to know how dedicated she is. You may not have known this, but we got out for Christmas. That night, she got hit by a real large truck. And she is in pain this morning. She can barely open her eyes. and she's here, she's rocking it. And if you hadn't seen her shoes, I'm gonna tell you her shoes. But, she's going MRI, she's got sciatica nerves. If you've ever had sciatica pain, you know what it's like. But y'all, she is a trooper because, she's on pain meds today and she's been on having physical therapy. But to come and just give it all this, so I want y'all to know, y'all have one of the best supervisors, curriculum specialists. Just send her email and just encourage her. Y'all, that's something to be here. And this morning, I didn't think she was gonna be here to do it. So, thanks.
I am just doing my job, but thank you, I appreciate it. And I want to make your lives easier, because it wasn't that long ago I was doing work. All right, keep working.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's not gonna do anything.
Yeah.
It's not,
You gotta have
a lot, yeah. You're gonna go through, you're gonna.
Okay, yeah, I had that old email, I had that.
Which you never tried.
Are you on camera? She started. I didn't start it for Wi-Fi.
That means yours and you're gonna take this line out there, and it's gonna say that you're gonna type in the president, and it's gonna say that it's expired, and then they're gonna send you that same email in that box. That one thing. No legal.
We got it. I deleted it twice. Now we get 2 syllables.
I got it, but it's still not gonna come on the iPad. We're gonna get to the Helen, I'm looking for Helen. No, I want to go ahead and make 2 people.
I do my job right now, 41 years, I get the stuff they've done, she's let them stop it.
Right. And okay, real quickly, another good question was, although we know we cannot fix 4th grade standards in a 4th grade RTI class, can we utilize the mathematical practices during RTI to make sure that we're teaching them the practices, even though it's not at grade level, because RTI is below grade level. So when they actually get to grade level, they know how to apply those mathematical practices. Yes, most definitely. Mathematical practices are not grade specific. So please, through your RTI practices, make sure you're hitting those mathematical practices.
Okay, now check your email again.
Awesome. There you go. I will give you
Oh, then you'll go to setting, and I use the
call
same
Ashley and just talk to her and get her information about So school, the library. Okay.
Third grade.
Okay, now how many students? So less than about 35. Are you looking at a full day excursion, like from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock, or let's say to the bar? Or general trip, like a 1 to 2 hour trip, Okay, well, just call her, and she's not in today, she'll be in tomorrow. She'll let you know, like, give her some ideas about dates, so you don't have to reach her dates open, a lot of them are already full, so do Tuesday through Friday. And you just let her know, like, what it is that you're looking for. Like, again, if you're looking for an all-day excursion, you're looking from 9 o'clock to about 1 o'clock. Let her know what activities you're looking for. Well, here's the problem with the activities, is that we don't really do a whole bunch of activities. So if you're bringing first grade all the way to sixth grade, okay. We can do a lot of basic activities, so if you want us to do like a grade level topic and say you need to do like we work a lot with the person. And so I'll do something else where you can blocks, and they actually put blocks down, and they look at blocks, and then you can also look at the balls. It's in the same concept. But they basically do it, and they basically look like a body. The second person actually translated it from the area kids all, they like playing it. So, like, keys and locks and anyways, there's a game that the market kids like to play with too, someone who's creative. It's math, science, history, ELA, so we do some writing concepts.
When you are finished, hang on ladies, 1 second, I'm sorry. Before you walk out the door, I need to conclude, so hang on 1 second, I'm sorry. I have too much to leave without the last part. Okay, when you are finished, you're going to use your handy dandy electronic device. No, so that's, Alright, so before you go, I want to leave you with this, and I'm not saying you have to leave, but I firmly believe in work hard, play hard, and you guys have worked hard today. I really do. I'm very impressed with this many people, and as I walk around the room and I ask questions, you truly understand what our purpose is today. But I want to leave you with this. Maybe if the projector comes back on. Sweet! So that hits everybody, because we're supposed to have 97 plus, yep, that almost hits everybody. That's awesome. Y'all, that's awesome. Great job for singing. As soon as everything comes up. And I'll be right to the dragons. Come on over there, Michael.
That's right, bird. Yeah. That's what's wrong.
Okay, so this is what I need you guys. Okay, this is what I want you guys to look at real quickly. Okay. Now that you truly understand what the expectation of the state is for our students, we want to make sure that each lesson, the students should be exposed to the types of questions they are going to be expected to answer based off of the assessment guide. After today, we truly understand that this means we should teach each student using the what? While assessing our students. And when I say assessing our students, I'm talking about assessing the students' needs. That doesn't mean pencil and paper. This is every day, every minute of every class. We are checking to make sure our students understand. And not just do they understand the song and dance and the hype that I did, but make sure they understand how to apply that song and dance and hype, because they're going to be asked specific types of questions. So, while assessing our students' needs with the question types that assessment guide states, that covers those MPs and components of rigor. Does everybody see the task types we practice with our mathematical practices and we cover by our level of components? Our level of rigor, our components of rigor. All right. This is something that should be implemented within our lessons. This is not about just going find questions on Eagle, going find questions or Eliminate, go find questions in the math, in the practice test. Because as we saw today, the math practice test that the State Department gave us, does it have all the task types in there? So if all we do is practice that lead practice test that we were given, are we doing our kids justice?
No.
It is our job. Our job, the most important job on this planet, is what we do every day. But it's only important if we make it important and applicable for our students to be successful. So remember, it's not about giving the students a question, it's about teaching them mathematical practices that allow them with precision to be able to construct viable arguments, to critique the reasoning of others, and to model their knowledge of math. So today you leave here with two challenges. I expect when I come into your classroom to see you utilizing what we learned today. I expect when your directors come into your classroom, when your administrators come into the classroom, they are blown away because you guys truly know what to do. You know what we're teaching, we know how to teach it, and we're making sure our students are prepared for standardized testing. When you are finished with your work for today, and we have this space till 3:30, please make sure that you use your handy dandy technology device and share your thoughts with me through this evaluation. You have my blessing to go on and to do the best that you can do. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Thank you for a wonderful day.
Somebody asked what that was.
That is a QR code. Borrow a friend's phone.
You're very welcome anytime.
Hey, it's been fun. It's awesome to meet you. And I also don't forget the sentence. It's already on its way. And this was
Everything is already streamlined, it's already connected, it's archived, but it's already there. And you'll see if you kind of scroll through I added during the video the whenever we're ready, no one has stuff in the comments. I'll show you not that I saw. The chat is live, no one left in the chat, but that's basically the questions that are there's any comments that you have do so. Thank you No, and they will stay there. Just let us know when I do it ready for us to outside it and take it off the system.
Until Friday.
Yep. Until you say otherwise.
Sweet, thank you.